Do you want to get us started by just talking about team's 10-0 start and looking ahead to the next two home matchups?
Yeah, I've said it a couple of times, just reiterate it. When we made the schedule, if I didn't think we would necessarily be 10-0, I'm happy that we are. It means we've played really well, played under a lot of diverse situations and a lot of diverse circumstances and found a way to the result to be wins. But I'm really more pleased with how we've continued to make progress in a lot of different areas, players' roles, development. 10's a nice round number for everybody to reflect back on, and we all like round numbers in sports. So we'll do a lot of checking in. We were off yesterday, but today will be our check-in day on where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. I like where we've been. I like where we are. We'll keep testing this for where we're going. This week with Lamar coming in and Arkansas State on Sunday heading into finals. With Mac out, we haven't talked with this group necessarily. With Mac being out, potentially for those two games, a chance for us to do some new things. Players having to have a little bit of a different role. So I'm really anxious to see what that looks like. Mac is day to day, but we're preparing for the fact that we might not have her until the Creighton trip.
All right, Ethan, go ahead.
All right, Coach. So I know a lot of people wanted it last week, but yesterday got finally a little bit of the national love, ranked 21st. Just how did it feel to get, I guess, a little bit of attention from the national media?
Good on a couple of counts. One, for our players, they look at that stuff, and that's something they talk about, and they, with their name, image, and likeness, it's a big deal to get clicks, and isn't that what it's called? Clicks. They get clicks and likes and all that. So that's big. We've had a string here at the university of every team so far that's competed being ranked. So you don't want to kind of be the turd in the punch bowl and, not the team that's the first one not. So I'm glad that we got that out of the way. I've always said that, polls don't mean everything, but they also don't mean nothing. They mean that we played well. I was really happy to see the net come out as well yesterday and find ourselves inside the top 25 of that. So all in all that, but like I said when we were talking to y'all last week, I'd much rather wait till we deserve it and have earned it than, to be pressured into people voting for us. But obviously jumping in at 21, I think that shows you that a lot of people took a good hard look. It also means people at the bottom of the poll lost. That's the inertia of the poll that we talk a lot about. So it's a timing thing. I wish it was the last week of the season and not when it is, but we'll do everything we can do to keep challenging our team, but stay ranked and stay in the national conversation.
And then I know Sailor won Freshman a Week again today. She said after the game the other day that she thinks that kind of good things are coming people's way because everybody's starting to accept their roles. Just what do you think from top to bottom, this team, where it's at, accepting kind of, where they fit in the puzzle?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that through 10 games they've looked and they learned that you don't have to shot hunt with this team. The ball will find you. It might not find you that possession, but it'll find you the next time if you take good shots when you're open and shots. And they talk to each other. They know the shots they want each other shooting. And I think everybody has settled into that understanding that make the right basketball play and it'll go a long way towards helping us. Sailor the other night, if you didn't watch the game with a really critical eye, you might not have caught it, but she played 4 offensive positions for us, and she guarded all 5 defensive positions against Oral Roberts. And that just speaks to her versatility. I'm happy that the league recognized her. Sam certainly had a case for player of the week. But like we said, Sam would rather our team be 2-0 and get the team honors than individual honors. But it would have been nice to have they love to do co's on the men's side, I've noticed, and in football. We haven't delved into that market on the women's side, but Bordeaux's had a great week too. And in this league, anytime you get one of those, it's a tremendous honor because of the other depth that the teams have. So but I think what Sailor said is she's right. The teams, they're starting to trust each other. It takes time, when you've got new faces out there and even old faces in new roles. But I would say 10 games in, I'll check their pulse today at practice, but I think everybody's pretty pleased with where we're at. And accepting and trying to star in the role that you've earned.
Thanks. That's all that I have right now. I might have
All right.
a couple at the end.
Okay.
Courtney?
Hey, Coach, you kind of mentioned with Mac being out or day by day, you're going to kind of try some new things. Are you looking to anyone specific to step up, or do you just kind of think it's, whoever takes that role and wants to be a leader?
Well, I learned a long time ago from coaches that I've worked with, when you have a situation like that where you're expecting a player to come back, it's a good idea to do the thing that's the least intrusive to your current team. So, Jersey started a lot in the past, so I think she's comfortable doing that, and she obviously played with a lot of confidence and very comfortable. There's a lot of kids that Riley it could have been Riley. It could have been go big and play Merriam. We had a lot of options, but I felt like the least intrusive thing to everybody's role was to start Jersey and then bring Riley and Merriam in those same spots that they've been in. I think it'll be by committee, doing just little things. It changes Sam's role probably the most because the ball ends up in her hands. Saylor did a great job for 6 or 7 minutes there at the point for us. But it changes Sam's role probably the most. Be a little bit more aggressive offensively, scoring, and also still trying to create for others. And it changes her defensive role a lot because Max always usually guarded the most offensively talented opponent that's a guard. That falls on Sam's shoulders now a lot of nights. So I think they all have just a little bit of a new role, but not a major role change.
Perfect, Coach. And what do you see from Lamar?
A lot of Coach Blair. I called Coach Blair last night. I watched my first Lamar film. Aqua was a great player for Coach Blair on their national championship team. And I don't know if they call the plays the same, but I see a lot of Coach Blair influence, and that's a positive thing. Aqua was a very she was ahead of the game when she was running the point guard spot for them down there at A&M during those years. I watched her play a lot. She's a Texas kid, so I've seen her play since she was very, very young. She coaches the very similar way. They are tenacious defensively. That comes probably more from Vic Schaefer having to play for Vic than coach, but and I know she's put her own stamp on these things. She's not just carbon copy. She's put her own stamp on a couple of Hall of Famers. They will really test us defensively. Offensively, they are in attack mode the entire time. Think, kind of a combination of Oral Roberts and Kent State. They're going to come at you, and they obviously take on her mentality. It's hard nosed. It's at you offensively and in your face defensively.
Thanks, Coach. That's all for me.
Okay.
Jordan?
Hey, Coach. Congrats on the start.
Thanks.
I know when you're winning, it can be easy to sort of lose focus inside of those things that got you where you are. How are you keeping this team locked in and executing on offense and defense?
Making them go against our guys' practice team every day, who can bring us back down to earth pretty quick. The second we start thinking we're too good, they can bring us back down to earth. And just being really honest with them, Jordan, I think we talk openly and honestly. We don't try to trick them into thinking an opponent is, 2 or 3 levels better than they are. We try to be really honest with them and let them know that everything we're doing in practice is going to matter in some game. It may not be that next game. It may be when we go to Creighton. It may be when we play Oregon. It may be when we open with LSU. But just trying to keep every single opportunity that we're on the practice floor knowing that we're working towards something. I've had kids come back and, Coach, they didn't even run that play we worked on. I said, yeah, but you're going to see it when we play Creighton. So I think having that open dialogue, our kids know that every day in practice is working towards something bigger than maybe even what's right in front of us. So talking to them about it, making sure they understand that. Also making sure they understand that, there's a lot of – just look at what happened in the poll since it started. There were 3 teams ranked in the top 5 that are no longer ranked. That's never happened. I saw where somebody tweeted maybe it happened one time in the history of the poll. What happened 3 times this year? So in today's world of ever-changing speed, man, the second you start thinking that, next thing you know, you can be from the outside looking in, and I know our group doesn't want that to happen.
Great. And Lamar has a couple of really talented guards in their backcourt, especially on defense. How do you feel about that matchup with Sam and then whoever's going to take Mac's spot?
Yeah, it'll be a challenge for him, and that's again why we picked Lamar to play. One of their assistant coaches, a former player of mine at Tulsa in Colorado, and we were talking about it on the road this summer. So I'm glad it worked out, because that will simulate us for LSU, for A&M, for Alabama, for Auburn, teams that have multiple great guards. Florida's got that. So I'm glad we're getting to play it. I'm glad we're getting to play it at home. Those kids could certainly be on SEC rosters. There's no question in my mind. They could play at a lot of schools. So their film was really easy to make. Our kids have a healthy respect for watching them on film, and they know, just like going against Hannah Cooper the other night against Oral Roberts, you don't have to trick them into making these players look better than they are. They're good players, and it doesn't matter what conference we're playing against. These are kids that, you could look around in a couple of years and these kids could be on SEC rosters very easily.
Great. And I just got one more for you. Maybe I'm looking a little far ahead. I know you talked about it a little earlier, but the level of competition is definitely going to take a jump here coming up soon. I know the non-conference has been no joke, but you've got a few ranked opponents coming up. Have you looked ahead at that at all, and how are you feeling about your ability to handle that jump?
Yeah, I look ahead. I mean, I think you have to. I mean, we don't prepare necessarily. I don't waste a lot of time doing it, but yeah, you look ahead. I watch Creighton on TV, and I watch Ohio State all the time because that's my buddy Kevin, and I watch South Florida at Texas the other night, and I watch Oregon every chance I get. We knew when the schedule laid out like it did that coming out of finals, it's going to feel like our finals test going to Creighton, who's been in the top 10 or 15 all year. And then knowing that Oregon is waiting out there, and win or lose, you got a team in South Florida or Ohio State. It's just a really, really good event. But I think with a team like we knew we had, wading into it, challenging them, but learning to win. Some teams can't learn from wins. I hope this team is one that can, that it doesn't take a loss that hurts so bad for us to finally listen or pay attention or take something a little bit more seriously than we have. But again, I think that goes back to just the open dialogue, the talking about it, hey, is this coming? And it's going to matter. That, hey, it might not matter tonight. It really might. You might be able to get away with that tonight. But I can assure you're not going to get away with it at Creighton or in San Diego. So keeping that as a focal point and pointing it out in practice when that happens is kind of one of the tools that we use to do our best to keep them focused. But you can't fool kids and you can't fool dogs. Papa Neighbors used to always say. So I'm not going to go in there and lie to our kids, because you lose credibility with our group when you do that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brett?
I might need a ruling whether I can quote "turd in the punch bowl" on the telecast or whether I just have to.
Just attribute it to my Papa Neighbors. Say
I might do that.
Quoting Papa Neighbors.
Do you have a preference when Mac's not available and Sam's not in the game, who you want to bring the ball across the midcourt or handle it? Or do you even want Sam at times when she's in the game not to handle it and to spot up in a different spot?
Yeah, no, we move them around. If you ever hear me stand up off the bench and yell something in a live ball, it's usually to get our kids moving. Like we have we call them prefixes. You'll hear me yell move or clear, and that just gets a little bit of movement, gets a different ball handler to handle it. Got the utmost confidence in Saylor out there. Jersey is getting back to her guard orientation that she's used to having played her whole life. It's still really hard because she's got a lot of smaller guards underneath her as she travels to dribble. But no, we can put it in Chrissy's hands. We can put it in Saylor's. But Saylor, I guess, would be probably the backup point guard if we had to do a two deep deal like Coach Pittman does. She would probably technically be there. And Avery's coming back. Avery getting back into practice full speed. She's an upperclassman. I wouldn't have any problem putting Avery out there with our starting lineup and letting her run the show either. Really, we've always had confidence in her. I think she's getting back into game shape, and the more she gets there, she might can see her out there with our other four starters at some point these next two games.
Because obviously ORU didn't get to game plan for Mac not being there, but the
Yeah.
next couple opponents very well may trying to get the ball out of Sam's hands.
Yeah, we did our best to keep it quiet that first game, and it worked. There was some surprise. There was a little bit of a surprise element, and we'll play the day-to-day card as long as we can. Hopefully they're preparing and not knowing, but they will obviously have a better chance at it. You might see some teams try to trap us a little bit more, which I think Saylor can just throw over the top of. She played point guard in high school. She's a coach's kid, grew up in the family. She thinks the game like a point guard. So wouldn't have any problem with her sliding over there. And Avery's been in a lot of situations. So either of those two kids, even if the team has prepared for us, I think we'll have a plan to make them wrong.
All right, Dudley.
Well, I don't know if it'll make the telecast or it'll make the newspaper, but I can guarantee you that Turd in the Punch Bowl is making Hogville. So
Good. Well,
yeah.
I hope that was a word that we used to use as a euphemism for a worse word. So I hope that's Greenwood.
There you go.
That's my Greenwood upbringing. But hopefully it gives you a visual. You don't want to. Hey, you walk in our head coaches meetings, man. That's a tough room to be in when in the fall when you got football is in the top 10 and men's basketball is like number 8 and soccer is going the Elite 8 and Jason gets in the tournament and wins a game. It's a tough room, and cross country and the golfs and swimming and diving. Those are all the sports that we've already had started. And I mean, we were the only team. Y'all didn't say it. Thank y'all for not publicizing it. But up until this point, we were the only team on campus to have not been to have competed in an SEC or a competitive season. So if it makes its way in there, I know you'll do it service justice, Dudley.
I know it's cool and newsworthy for you to be in the top 25, but I would think that instead of being a surprise, that's more of a goal or an expectation for you all the time, isn't it?
It is. I think in this league especially, I honestly don't know that it's attainable every single year. Otherwise, I think, Coach Blair was a great coach here, and you couldn't stay in there every year. It's hard to rebuild, and if we're rebuilding and finding ourselves in there 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5, I think, and again, we only ranked 25 out of 361. It's not like we're ranking 25 out of 114 or 15 like they do in some sports or less. That's a really high percentage when you put a 25 out of 361 beside it. That's a pretty elite group to be in. So it is something that, gets talked about a lot. So it is certainly something we look at every year. It's a little bit of a benchmark and a measuring stick.
All right, Ethan.
Yeah, I just got one final one. I know that you've said before that kind of the way that you look at the schedule, kind of like narrow it down a little bit, talk about like a 4-game home stretch you've had. Do you do that with the team as well? Is that just something that coaches do?
Oh, no. We openly talk about it. Look at this. This is the end of one chunk. And we always, it's easy to make references back to their classes because they always have, little segments in their classwork, semesters or quarters or whatever. But these 4 in a row, we kind of lump them together as our homestand, December homestand. And the Arkansas State one will be the end of that one. And then we'll let them take finals and just decompress and do the best they can in their classes and then come back out and get to work on that next little 3-game, and it's a road trip. It's all one road trip for us. So it's easy to kind of put that as one little segment. We'll fly to Omaha and then fly directly to California for the tournament in San Diego.